OSHA compliance, and might sound like a dry and boring topic, but I think you'll find that there's a lot of great information for you to learn here and how to make your work environments safer for your employees. And with that, I want to just cover a few logistics. So if you have any questions during the webinar, there is a Q&A button at the bottom. You can see we've circled what it looks like on our slide here. Just click on that Q&A button and enter your question. There'll be a few of us monitoring the Q&A while the presentation is going on, and if we can answer your question, we'll just answer it in the Q&A, typing in the answer. But also we could also possibly save a question and answer for the end. And for anyone attending or anyone who signed up, you will be getting a recording of the webinar within a few days of today. So with that, I wanted to introduce our presenter. As I mentioned, Grid Connect is partners with AKCP. We are their stocking distributor here in North America. And joining us to help with the presentation is Young Cho. Young is currently the VP of Sales with and partners with AKCP. Previously at Splunk, working with cloud and data and big data and Industry 4.0 and lots of exciting stuff there. But the thing I really wanted to focus on is this Triumph Bonneville motorcycle thing that he likes to do. I think he's a braver man than I. But I'll turn it over to Young from here, and I'll drop my beautiful face off the screen and let Young take it. So without further ado, Young.
Great. Thanks for the great intro, Rick. First of all, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. My name is Young Cho. As Rick did the intro, I'm a VP of Sales and partner at AKCP. Before we start, I think it makes sense for us to do a little bit of intro of what AKCP does. AKCP is a company that bridges the gap between physical and software. Either things that are environmental or physical things or physical assets that organizations may have that requires it to be digitized and managed and connected. We allow that by providing sensor technology and hardware and software stack to have a full visibility to manage and automate. We work with many global industries globally, providing connected operational platforms. Before we begin, this is a quick legal statement saying that we could be making forward-looking statements, and some of the features and capabilities may change without notice. So with that out of place, let's jump into our content. Here's our agenda for our webinar. We'll start with talking about importance of work safety and knowing what OSHA and why OSHA is, and understand the challenges in complying OSHA. Then we'll talk about how technology can significantly help to achieve this crucial goal, along with some case studies and see how different organizations adopt the technologies to improve this process. And then we'll show you a bit of our product demo to get you the feel of what it could look like. And we'll round up the webinar with Q&A. So I'd like to start the discussion by putting us in the same frame of mindset about work safety. Why does it matter? To highlight the importance why, look at the sobering statistics in the chart. In 2023 alone, over 5,500 workers tragically lost their lives on the job in the United States alone. This is 5.7 increase from previous year, 2022. This surpasses 5,000 mark recorded 6 years in a row. This is just only about death, but if you talk about injuries, it's way higher, 10 or 20 times higher. Again, we're just talking about United States alone, but if you look at the global statistics, it's a lot higher because United States seems to have higher safety standards than a lot of other countries. To get you the feel of how critical this is, if you can imagine any one of our family members could be the part of the statistics, then it could feel a lot more personal and how alarming this may be. This is why businesses, communities, and governments should do anything possible to reduce the statistics. This is where OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, comes into play. OSHA is a United States government body. OSHA's mission is declared to ensure safe and healthy working conditions for everyone by setting and enforcing safety standards at workplace. To achieve this goal, OSHA focused on 4 main areas. One being the safety regulation. So OSHA communicates a lot of the safety standards for different industries. Second, training education provides various programs to enhance workplace awareness. You see on the right here is website of OSHA. There's a lot of content related to how different industry implement different type of safety measures. Third is inspections. There's regular inspection that are happening with organizations. I'm sure a lot of the attendees today may be feeling the pain of complying with the regulations that they put out. Finally, any other mandates, there's a mandate to report any work-related incident to the government within given amount of time. So this is at a state level, but there's also a level of regulation that different states put out. For example, California is probably the most aggressive one out of all the states, where a lot of environmental value needs to be monitored, and record keeping must be enrolled to show compliance. So things like heat and humidity, air quality, other lighting, gas related, any harmful environment that could be harmful to workers in workplaces needs to be monitored. So this is great that government cares about, and there's a program to manage, to provide well-being for the workers. But navigating OSHA regulation can feel like a daunting maze. To talk about a few challenges, first is to keeping it up. There's various regulations and standards for different industries. Again, not all businesses operate the same way. So what applies to them in keeping up with, the standards for that industry? And if you're lack in certain areas, you're really vulnerable to, a lot of the liabilities, ultimately the loss of lives potentially. Second is manual reporting, manual monitoring. So traditionally, safety checks involve manual monitoring, relying on visual inspections and logs. This is very time consuming and prone to error. And when it's time for a compliance demonstration, it's really hard to do that if the record hasn't been kept up correctly. So this is a really burden on the OSHA, managers that are managing this regulation in different organizations. Third is reactive versus proactive. Waiting for an accident or incident to happen before taking an action is very hard. That's why we call it accident, right? It's really hard to take account into all the different possibility of things could go wrong. So a lot of times, a lot of the program that they manage is more reactive, which needs to change. Finally, compliance demonstration. When it's time for demonstrating the compliance, the bookkeeping needs to be straight, kept well, and doing this, in regular basis is very difficult, which it's open for organizations to get fines and different sort of liability related to not complying. And on the other side, the consequences are really, really devastating. So, two things. One is fines. It ranges from thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And there could be lawsuits between employees and the businesses. It could also raise, insurance premiums for a lot of organizations. But finally, the most importantly, the loss of lives, it could be devastating for workers, their families, further the communities. So there's got to be a better way, a way to stay ahead of the curve, be proactive to manage the risks, and how to demonstrate the compliance at ease. It's really requires a different type of technology to address it. To address the challenge, introducing the sensor-based environmental monitoring. So imagine a world where ensuring OSHA is not a struggle, but it's a proactive, seamless process where early identification could be detected before it becomes a problem, and demonstrating the compliance is at ease, where maybe a click of a mouse could be done to demonstrate 6 months worth of the record that the system has been kept up. Now, this is a reality using industrial-based sensor monitoring technology that AKCP provides. To give you a little bit of of capabilities of the platform, let's start with the bottom here, the sensors. Sensors are ones that gets installed in the workplaces in different environments, either from temperature, humidity, very common in workplaces to monitor, but other things such as noise level, motion such as motion to monitor, spaces that are restricted to understand whether there's any movement in there, brightness, chemical gas, VOC, even vision to monitor things that are out of compliance, such as somebody not wearing a helmet. All this sort of requirement for monitoring automatically using the system, using the platform and hardware is all there for you to plug and play. Then there's a platform that now connects all those sensors, allowing the administrators to monitor and gain visibility, and also provide, define alerts and action, and also define reports when it's time for compliance, then click on it to be complied, addressed as reporting, compliance requirements. What if your operation is bigger than a one site, right? Oftentimes, most of our customers are. So as you see here, depending on the number of locations that organizations may have, could be monitored at the location level. And then centrally, all that location could be monitored using the centralized monitoring server that AKCP provides as a software stack, as well as a cloud stack that without installing any software in the infrastructure, in the company network, the SaaS service could be signed up to bring all the sensor platform online to the cloud environment, so that any organization with any teams within your organization could access those dashboards and to be able to manage different sensors for different alerts, and also define actions when things are kind of happening, to monitor early warnings. So with proper investment into the right technology, safety isn't really a cost, it's really a great investment, as you see. By doing that, there are three key things that organizations accomplish. One is reduce cost, right? Imagine reducing claims, fines, and penalties related to not complying. Of course, it would enhance the productivity of workers, and having less incident with reduced downtime for operations. And finally, environmental sustainability requirements that every organization on the earth is committed to. It's about creating brand image, showing the responsibility as an organization that delivers to the society. So all this effort, in the midst of overall digital transformation is happening across different industries, the data and the visibility, the action, the reports, these are critical elements. And monitoring safety and health for organizations and OSHA is really important to improve the safety. And ultimately, by implementing and investing in this technology, not only we address OSHA, but address a bigger goal with the environmental, social, and governance trend that's happening across the globe. So let's dive a little deeper into different sensors, what you can monitor and manage. So starting with temperature and humidity, California recently put out new OSHA compliance at the state level. So whenever the temperature workplace rises about 82 of Fahrenheit, then it requires a certain level of facilities, processes, and training to be in place. That means the temperature and humidity must be monitored and kept record, right? So temperature and humidity is very common. But on top of that, air quality, there are dust, fumes, gases, noise levels, server rooms, construction sites, all that noise level must be monitored. And if the level goes up, then we have to notify the workers in that space that noise has gone up the limit, so that workers could put on the headset to protect their ears. Other things like illumination sensors to protect employees from light exposure that are high. Motion sensors to detect any restricted safety area could be monitored instead of security or manually monitoring those locations with video cameras. Whenever there's movement detected, then we could get an alert saying that in that restricted area, there's somebody been detected, there's motion there. As well as chemical. Finally, computer vision, which we, AKCP, are working on the solution for, to look at the computer vision AI, applying AI to the computer vision to monitor things sort of out of compliance, such as somebody not wearing their hats, safety hats, in a critical, sensitive, safety environment. So these are all the sensors so customers could quickly purchase and plug and play. And they will be plugging into our hardware platform, as you see here, and these are smart sensor ports. And we do have a lot of other sensors that are really relevant for operations. So we just talked about ESG. There's a significant trend for monitoring energy. So on the top, we talked about environmental monitoring, but in the middle, we have energy and security sensors, which also we combine security. In terms of energy, we have sensors are going into the panels to monitor the current flow or amount of flow, to monitor how much energy is being consumed by different sites and different operation with different machines even. And in the bottom, there's a lot of other industrial sensors that organizations could implement either for safety or for operational efficiency. And on the right here, lastly, the different visual signals could be applied. So one of the light could be plugged into the smart sensor port. Whenever thresholds are met, and maybe the light could be turned on to notify workers of being cautious in that environment. Could be additional accessories that customer could look into and plug and play and integrate. So here's a platform laying down in one new form factor. Smart sensor port we just talked about. Other things like dry contact I/O and relay are often integrated with existing systems. So we also integrate with either PLCs or different industrial control system. And if those control systems provide any safety information that needs to be processed, then all that physical asset could be integrated into dry contact I/O or mini relays to either monitor them or control them. And talking about control and automation, here's an example of what things could be done. So we talked about California have a requirement of 82 degrees Fahrenheit whenever something happens, right? So in that kind of example, temperature, humidity could be read into our platform, and anybody could be defining an alert and automated action to say, hey, whenever we see a threshold being met, then I want to turn the fan automatically. So we can turn the fan or turn switch on and off and let the worker aware that some thresholds are met so that more safety cautions should be followed. So this is an example which we'll show you a demo of, toward the end. Another very important product offering that we have, a wireless solution. So oftentimes in warehouses, big factories, it's really hard to run cables in those environments to implement different type of sensors. So here in the middle, it's a controller, access point, very similar to the wired one we just talked about, but this is only wireless. It communicates with the other clients, and it could be 5 miles of line of sight. So in this example, 2 miles of line of sight. So imagine big factories. And without running any cables, and these clients could be equipped with 3 AAA batteries, and it's got 4 smart sensor ports to pick and choose what type of sensors customers want to implement, and quickly deploy the wireless sensors all over the operation facility, which individual client could last up to 5 years for running 3 AAA batteries, which is incredible. So we just talked about the overall kind of solution and different solution product offerings that we have. Let's cover a couple of case studies. First one is a global textile manufacturing operation. So here's what the environment looked like. In this environment, there's no air conditioning running. So instead, what they do is they have run a massive fan and water cooling method to run air from one side to another side of the building, right? So what they have implemented is they wanted to maintain a certain level of temperature. So they implemented temperature and humidity monitoring for the environment, and they were able to lose 20% reduction in the heat-related incidents they had. So this is typically factories in a lot of the hot regions of the world where all that humidity and temperature could be monitored. And automation, as we just talked about, was possible. So whenever thresholds were met, then signals from digital I/O was sent to turn on the fan or raise up the fan speed, so it could bring a lot more air into the space to alleviate the heat, which in turn, they were able to reduce energy costs for overall facility cooling costs, which is very significant in the age of, energy prices constantly increasing and temperatures constantly rising everywhere around the globe. Second use case for global chemical manufacturing operation. So this is to monitor air quality in different locations of the factory. There's a lot of chemicals being involved, so when workers are exposed to those chemicals, it's very serious and dangerous. So what they implemented AKCP's technology to monitor those chemical levels. Whenever those thresholds are met, then AKCP hardware platform triggers a visual sign, as you see here, letting the workers in that space know the chemical exposure for that area has met the threshold, so that workers either need to step away or wear proper protection to protect themselves for different chemical exposure, which is very critical. Now, third is a very interesting construction site. Not only the monitoring the noise level for the work site is important, but monitoring it for the society, the towns nearby, to monitor, make sure that they don't violate the rule of creating too much noise in the area to avoid fines was a very important goal they need to achieve. So they implemented noise level sensors to monitor the noise level throughout the day. And whenever the noise level went over the limit, they would schedule those work so that the noise level don't all happen at the same time. So they could kind of spread out different work based on the noise levels, so they avoid fines. Very practical use case there. So with that, I'd like to show you some demo of our product. So first, I'll show you how AKCP could monitor facilities that are remote and to be able to understand what's going on in that facility. And maybe with that, following that, we show you how to customize dashboard drag and drop. So we have software stack that's on-prem or in cloud to customize their dashboard for their own operation. And thirdly, I think this is very important, how to define action and do automation. So without spending much investment into industrial automation platform, AKCP has a capability to define threshold, and depending on the threshold or any other readings from the digital I/O context, then we could define actions and then try to control different things that are connected as an automation platform, which is very powerful. So we show you 3 types of demos as we go. So here's an example of a dashboard. So a single pane of glass dashboard seeing the operation here. You see the worker in that sort of manufacturing facility is working on something where the vision AI, which we're working on, we currently have a video technology to drag and drop, but further extending that, it recognized that worker did not have the helmet on, right? So it recognized that. On the top, we're seeing all the key metrics for that work site that are being violated. So there's warning, there are sites, locations that are working okay. And in the bottom, you see all the trends of different environmental conditions that the manager really care about. Further, automation could be done. Well, not automation, but this is on top of automation, an actual remote controlling of devices could be possible. So you can drag and drop these type buttons. So you can click on to start, stop different assets, or turn on strobe light as sirens, and all that sort of interacting with the physical device to control is all possible. You can embed that action into a widget, as you see, as a button or up and down switch. So let me jump into the actual demo. So here's an environment where we're monitoring a facility with a lot of potential temperature issues, chemical issues, and so on. So in the map, we're seeing that location, currently showing green. But imagine you can have all of your 200 sites that you manage in your map. Whenever that site shows issues, you can actually drill in. So you can drill into that particular site, and you're seeing the layout of that site. So it looks like we have 3 physical rooms there. We have a room with a generator room, battery room, and working sites with different machines there. As the employee walked into the room, you saw the door opened up. So it's showing green, but it shows the sensor saying that either doors open or closed. And we could click on the environment. So this particular station, we can drill in to see what this particular location looked like in terms of temperature and what the ambient temperature looked like on that location. And on the right, we're seeing the trend of how temperatures are changing over time to see whether we have violated, our temperature, requirement that we need to meet. So there seem to be some spikes here and there. We also integrate the camera here. So the camera is located on that side of the building, in that room. And as door opens up, we saw the door just opened up. So integrating the security element, the dry contact, whenever things opens up, and that senses things and showing that door opened up and showing overall status. So this side overall looking okay. And you can also drill into additional things to monitor different metrics that you care about for that environment. seeing different levels of environmental conditions and see what the trends is looking like, over, 24 hours. And here's an example of our dashboard. Dashboards are all drag and drop. So let me show you how you create a dashboard. So whenever I see, when I could create a dashboard template, and whenever I want to drag some values, so I could drag this one into my dashboard here. And we just drag and drop a temperature dashboard there. I could either change that to graph if I want to. And then I could also drag different things. So camera is another one. So we integrate cameras with our monitoring platform and solution. We also have a camera as a plugin module to our sensor platform. So here we're seeing cameras of showing different environmental status of that particular location, seeing how things are looking. And I can drag and drop any sensor information that we just talked about in previous slides on all the sensors that customers could pick and choose in that particular location. Very easy to use. And you can now also go back in time and see, what happened. So let's say incident happened, 2 days ago. We can go back in time and see what happened during that time, synchronizing the video with all the statistics that may be relevant for that time. Finally, I'm going to show you how to create an alert. We've heard from our customers that automation would cost them a lot of money to implement industrial automation platform and hardware to do. But with AKCP, just implementing sensor platform with our hardware and software stack, that capability is delivered as free of use for a lot of our customers. So here you can generate an alert. So I'm going to create an alert, and I want to say, hey, whenever some thresholds are met, in a job site, that I want to do something. So I want to create a notification, and I want to select different sensors. So, for example, I want to do temperature sensor that are critical. I want to do some other thing, maybe some speed of the maybe fan. In this example, is engine, but says a fan. If that's low critical, and I apply two conditions there, and I could define an action that once those conditions are met. So I'm going to create an action, which brings up all the actions that I could define. So here I could define an action. These are all the different actions that the customers could define. Very comprehensive, even a telephone call, right? We can generate speech on our platform to say something, or we can generate sirens, SMS, but more importantly, SNMP set and trap. These are very important to automate other platforms. So we can send SNMP trap to other control system to pick up on some message and do something. Or I can do Modbus. So Modbus is a very common industrial protocol where a lot of the control system support. So let's say I want to send a command to a control PLC to say, hey, I want to, whenever those conditions met, I want to access my cooling system via Modbus protocol, and I want to give it the address of that Modbus host. I want to set some value there, so I could do that. So I could define a address space and define some action. So this is something you have to read your manual to integrate. But as do that, define different conditions and say finish. So what I just done is whenever some sensor condition matches, I want to generate a Modbus action to control a PLC to set something to control that particular asset. Very powerful. It's all included as a part of our platform. On top of that, there's a lot of different things, right? Dry contact is another one. relay, we can do relay switch. So we saw our component where you can have a relay switch integrated to it. You can turn on and off different switches there. And you can run a script, so very comprehensive in terms of what you can integrate. We can almost integrate almost anything in the industrial operation environment, either physical or software-wise, to control and do automated action. So with that, I hope that the demo show you, the power of our platform and what it can do. Through our webinar, let's kind of wrap up here. We've explored the challenges of navigating OSHA regulations and, and the limitation of the organizations and how they could improve. And through that, we also talk about how AKCP, sensor-based environmental monitoring and automation platform, can transform how to visualize, monitor, and alert, and also automate, which is really powerful. So just to wrap up, 4 things I would like to kind of reiterate. First is, by implementing sensor-based technology, as we just talked about, you could do proactive hazard identification, where you can do early detection of things before it happens. Secondly, real-time data insights, right? We allow organizations to bring all the physical environmental things into the digital realm. So either those could be monitors. So as organizations go to digital transformation, bringing those physical assets into the operation is a very critical thing, which our customers could gain real-time insights for all those physical assets, physical environment that they would like to monitor and manage. And ultimately, improve the OSHA compliance, and ultimately to improve overall work safety and well-being for our workers in our workplaces. With that, wrapping up the webinar, Rick, you want to come in and take over?
Yeah, sure. And I guess I think I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, so better late than never. I'm Rick Rockershausen, VP of Sales with Grid Connect, and we've been partners with AKCP for, I think, over 15 years now. Maybe it's closer to 20. I'm not sure. It's somewhere in that range. And I just wanted to thank Young Cho for his time today and both preparing and presenting this webinar. It's going to be a valuable resource for many going forward. The power of this technology is pretty awesome, as you saw in the demo. And even something as simple as just monitoring the temperature inside a warehouse or a factory for workers with that wireless solution. It's very straightforward to implement, and you can provide a much safer environment really quickly with the AKCP solution. So anyway, with that, I think we're going to go into the Q&A. And I do have a couple questions here. Let me get to the first one. All right, this one. What are the upfront costs associated with implementing sensor-based monitoring? So I don't know, you want to take that one, Young?
Yeah, Rick, that's a great question. I think they're very fundamental. Cost of implementing sensor-based technology could really vary depending on the environment, how complicated the operation is. But typically, investing into this type of technology is very little compared to the cost of manual, work that the organization has to do, as well as a lot of different fines and liability that are faced up to, right? So definitely, it's a great investment, very very effective, and small investment could really return significant value. Further, we just talked about ESG and overall energy monitoring, right? So it's not only the safety could be monitored, but overall physical environment for monitoring overall facilities, energy. It really all aligns with global theme of sustainability and ESG requirements that all the organizations are wanting to accomplish in the near future. Just to give you some rough idea about the cost perspective, right? industrial temperature humidity sensor combined will cost about $120 per
Percent.
install. Very affordable, right?
Yeah,
But the value of that will be significant.
for sure. Yeah, and if you go wireless, the installation cost gets greatly reduced. Sometimes the cost of the equipment is insignificant compared to running cables and clearing out areas so you can even access the right spots. So I think that the wireless technology is going to be key for a lot of companies in order to implement this on a cost-effective basis.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the customers really love the wireless technology that we provide. It uses LoRa technology, very low power, but long distance. So big warehouses, big manufacturing plants. Not only the plants have an indoor but outdoor environments too, right? Which
Yeah,
could go up to miles sometimes, right? And those
sure.
could be covered. And I am really impressed by how long one of those wireless devices could last. AAA batteries for 5 years. That's
Yeah, that's
incredible.
something, right? And
Yeah,
you get notice about the battery strength from the sensor itself too.
absolutely.
So you
Which is,
know when it's time to replace them.
mhm.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Let's see. I do have another one here. How does this technology integrate with existing safety protocols in my workplace?
Gotcha. Another good question there. Yeah, so AKCP technology is, we could either be the first platform to monitor safety and environmental efficiency. But at the same time, we often supplement or complement existing platforms, right? So a lot of organizations have building management systems. Either we bring those values and integrate a lot of the sensor readings to those bigger platforms, such as building management system or MES, or depending on the industry they're in, we can bring the information and share it to those platforms. Or we also oftentimes work as a main platform to monitor, integrate all that. For example, we talked about how we support Modbus
Right.
capability. So Modbus capability is a broad way to integrate industrial platforms and PLC. So let's say a site has a one-off, PLCs and controllers. We could actually integrate those one-off asset devices or generated, whatever it may be, to our platform and have all those industrial assets be monitored through our platform and be automated, right? So we talked
Right.
about centralized and cloud environment, really easy to implement. So we do both ways. I think it could work in both ways there to integrate with existing platforms.
Well, yeah, I think, and also speaking of Modbus, there's also the ability to bring in a Modbus sensor. So if AKCP
Yeah.
doesn't offer the sensor you need, and there's a Modbus version available or you already have it, it's quite simple then to integrate that in with the AKCP solution. And third-party sensors that are just 4 to 20 milliamps too. There's also interfaces to bring those in. So it's quite a powerful platform. It's plug and play with the AKCP sensors, and then you can add third-party sensors and really create really interesting automations to ensure worker safety and a safe environment.
Perfect. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we got very sensitive, medical industries where the sensor requirement may be somewhat more stringent.
Yeah.
Then those kind of sensors could be brought into other digital, analog IOs or integrate via Modbus. There's so many different ways to integrate those. Great point.
Yeah. Good. Let's see. Any other questions here? Just give it a second. Let's see. One of the attendees said you can also use SNMP to get data into building management systems. So yeah, that's
Totally.
an interesting point too.
It is. Yeah. Building management system, energy management system, they also often use SNMP.
Yeah.
So we do SNMP polls to bring those data in
Yeah.
from them, as well as we send SNMP value out to either upper management platforms the organizations may have. So yeah, vice versa.
Right, yeah, you showed the SNMP trap in your demo there, and that's one of the automation actions that's possible. And but yeah, with full SNMP support with AKCP, it's integrates with a lot of stuff with SNMP. So good. All right, I guess I don't see any other questions. I'll just give it a second here to see if anyone else might have a question. If not, I think we are about at our preferred end time, about a 45-minute webinar, which is perfect. And any other questions? No, nothing coming in. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for your attendance. And as we said, we will send out a recording of the webinar. It'll also be posted on our website and YouTube channel. And this hopefully will be a great reference for people working with OSHA and or just worried about worker safety. So, all right, that's it. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Young. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.